Hey guys, welcome to an episode that we are calling the House Paint Harmony. And we're going to talk about mid-century modern guitars that were dressed up to look like the Buicks and Oldsmobiles and Pontiacs that were running around at the time. And we're talking about those two-tone cars that had little circles of something or other on the hood and on the side walls, and the bumpers that look like bullets, and just this big round gaudy boat-sized car that was two-toned in color. So there was a couple of things going on in the 1950s, early 1960s in the guitar world, in which there was discovery of music and the marketing for the different guitars and the price of the guitars, and everything reflected a couple of different things. Now I've got about, believe it or not, 275 years worth of guitar age that I'm going to show you here. Let's start off by looking at the guitar I'm talking about. You know what? I think we're going to look at a different guitar first. And you've seen these, and I think this one's a good one to start with. It's really critical. This is the holy grail of catalog guitars. This is a Silvertone Kentucky Blue archtop guitar made sometime between 1955 and 1962. You can tell that this guitar has the paint pattern, two-tone, like I said, of the Buicks, the Oldsmobiles, and the Pontiacs of the time. Your Chevys had some too, but we're talking about these big boat, round, long things. And so I think that somebody in corporate marketing said, hey, look, we can match the paint thing on the cars and the style thing on the cars into a guitar and market to the beginning player, and this will be great for Christmas, and we'll do it through Sears, so you can do layaway. So you go in there, put $2 or $3 down, come in every week, pay 50 cents, and at the end of the day, this guitar was $19.99. And then for a few dollars more, you could get the chip case, and then Christmas morning you would open it up. Now, the quality of these guitars was not good. Let's just say that. There's no truss rod, and surprisingly, the neck had a great shape. I'm going to show you 1950 Silvertone in a few minutes here. These tuners are actually pretty good, but what are you going to get for $19.99? Well, let me tell you, back then the average wage in 1955 was $2.42 an hour, and the minimum wage was considered to be $1 an hour. So you're really looking at, you weren't taking home much more than $100 a week after taxes. So if you were bringing home $500 a month, and that translates to, I think they said the average annual income was, well, do the math. You're not talking about a lot of money. It would take you 2 months to get $1,000 into the house. Okay? So this guitar at $19.99 was a lot of money for the average blue-collar factory worker, for the kid to have a nice Christmas present. Now, they made a ton of them, so they're out there. But I want you to think about this. Back then, using an inflation calculator, $19.99 is now about $250. So I want you to think about what you can buy now to the door for $250 if you're going through an Amazon and you got Prime and free shipping, or even when you get into solid bodies, you can get something to the door that's set up better than your average boutique builder does. I don't care what they say. My stuff's the worst. Let's get that out of the way. I'm speaking from a point of complete ignorance. And so this was still a lot of money back then. Okay? If you're going to buy one of these, they're out there for $600, they're out there for $1,000, they're also out there for $300. So if you're going to get something, you want to junk pile up and put a pancake pickup on it and stuff, and get, you know, $500-$600 into it to have a beater, just don't forget they weren't the best guitar. Now let's talk a little bit about this guitar and one of our friends, Bob Log III. Now the action on these things tends to get high after a while. The neck wants to break loose, or it will bow. There's barely any relief in the neck. They warp, they twist. The bad neck resets are now the norm. And so you got to just kind of look at it and think, why did Bob pick this guitar? Well, number one, it's light. If you're going to get on an airplane now and you're going to do a carry-on, this guitar weighs very little because it's built very cheaply. And so if you're traveling, that's a consideration. Sometimes these heavy guitars that weigh 15 pounds plus the case, shipping them on a plane, buying a ticket for a seat for them to sit next to you, or to put them in the luggage bin and have them get crushed, yeah, you could find yourself basically buying one of these every other day for what it would cost to fly intercontinental with them. But they were pretty good for cowboy chords and this kind of stuff. But you saw Bob playing these early on. You want to remember, you do a cut in this top to put in some kind of a pickup. The pancake pickups worked with the action the way it came out of the factory. You get some thin P90 knockoffs that'll warp it. Remember, you drill a hole in this, you cut a hole in this, you put knobs in it. You've just dumped the cost in half to somebody that's trying to revive their Christmas childhood looking through a catalog. Yeah, my childhood was Johnny 7 OMA, Johnny 7 One Man Army, 1964. Looked at it. You know what? I think I will give you a link to the commercial up there right about now. It's amazing what those things cost but are not worth now. So anyway, getting back to topic, the model was this two-tone, affordable, layaway for Christmas. Now, that was a K. Let's talk about a Harmony. Let's talk about the same kind of thing called the Harmony Catalina. These were known as the Colorama guitars, and you had this, and they came in weird colors. Black with this weird salmon color. You saw some green with a tan, but this was like this. Okay, this guitar is surprisingly like the neck on it. If you look at the neck and you look at the pattern. By the way, these are Grover open back tuners. These tuners are worth $50 at least. And you know the 1950 silver tone junk pile. There's a playlist up there. This thing was a wreck. You notice that Tammy signed this. And by the way, this is going out to another kid that has CDLS. The day after the first anniversary of Tam's passing, there's a family get-together where all the CDLS families in the region get together, and this is going to a little girl that had the same condition as Tam. Now, this one got hot rodded up. Let's get some of that high note out of it. Look, stuff's jumping out of the way, but this is 1950 silver tone. All California dot. Oh, by the way, when the neck goes bad, sometimes that's because the body's coming off. And I've told you moving the body and the neck joint sometimes will fix the action. The action on this one is really good now, but look what's sticking out up here. See, I never cut that off. So that much of the body sticking out fixed the neck action. So back to our guitar that we're talking about. Okay, I got this one morning, one Saturday morning, and I've been going back and forth with the person. They had it for a while, and there was somebody that was a musician, and I picked it up on Sunset Boulevard somewhere between, I think it was Highland and Hollywood High School, which would be Cahuenga, I think. And I met him, and he'd had a good time with this guitar, but it was becoming unplayable, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But again, this is the same vintage, same type of build, quality and construction. I do like this neck a little bit better because this tends to be stronger. At least to me, it's still a clubby neck. There's starting to be a little gap here, but the most important part about this guitar is that somebody painted it with house paint. And so it's one of them things I wouldn't be afraid to take off what's here. So I would just take some acetone and just pull it off in layers. Be careful with acetone, it will kill the guitar. The neck, it is the original color. But somebody could have taken a guitar and basically laid out the pattern and got a new old stock Harmony Catalina sticker. And wind's picking up a little bit. But I want you to look close at this. I'm not going to put it on the bench, but that bridge is collapsed. Do you see right there in the middle? It has tone bars, so I could take my finger and put it in the F hole like this, and I can feel there's a tone bar right here. And that tone bar is kind of like a bass bar in a violin or a cello. You know what? I do have one around here somewhere. Anyway, they run here, they run all the way down the body and go under the edge here. And you can see where they are because this is dipping down here. Not so much over here. So the bass, the big heavy strings bearing down is what caused this to collapse. But you can see there's a ridge right here and it follows all the way down. You're starting to get a crack here. This is not uniform here. I don't like these bridges that have the gap in the middle. I'm going to show you a guitar called a Sherwood Standard in another episode where it's a great guitar, it's a hand carved spruce top, but that gap right there allows that to be open, leave it strung up in a case, hot, cold, boom, the book-ended spruce where they actually take spruce and split it and glue them together like a great archtop. These won't do that because they're pressed plywood. But this guitar, given that it's hand painted, given that the top is collapsing, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to take a look at this and say, do I want to take the binding off and take the bottom off and get everything back the way it needs to be, put a support rod in here, get the neck lined back up because it's starting to cut loose right there a little bit. Let me grab something here if I can. Piece of sandpaper. See, I can put that piece of sandpaper there. So the neck is starting to cut loose, which means it's coming up, so the action will be high regardless. So there is no binding on this guitar. This is just paint. You can tell that right here. Let's get a parting knife. Look at this. See this? It's coming apart there, and it's got a spot back here, right here, where it's coming apart. So I'll have the back off of this in a matter of a couple minutes with hobo hot plate and Granny's iron, and then I can put in one of my, wouldn't you know, it's right under the camera, but these things right here, I call them an overpass structure. What happens is the tone bars are right in here, and I cut these specifically to fit one of these, make sure the tone bars are right, make sure they're re-glued, everything's solid. Sometimes there's fabric in here like a linen that they use across the body so it doesn't split. Put brace in if you have to, do whatever, but this rides the tone bar, and the way you cut this, you make sure that it's rounded to the top, and when this is on the inside pushing up and this is affixed to the tone bars, what it does is when you steam this, you can actually pull this back up into place, and then of course the action of the neck and the body all have to come together. But if there's a guitar meant to hot rod up, I could take some matchbooks that I have that talk about Catalina Island, because that's what this was modeled after, and get it structurally okay, put a P90 on it, and given that it would be California themed with the matchbooks, I can get a blue and yellow plate, mix a little bit of yellow Catalina Island matchbooks in here, and get this thing hot rodded up. Then what is this worth? Well, if you get on Reverb or something like that, there's a few of these for sale, not as many as the Silvertone K model 653. Did I tell you that K653 is the Silvertone Kentucky Blue? The Harmony Catalina is model H1221 1221 is the model number you'll find in here. These, you're going to find out that if they're in any kind of shape and everything's good and the paint is okay, you're talking about $750 at the low end, and then you start getting up into $1,100 and $1,200 because this was not the same seller as the other one. So what you want to look for in these is there a gap on the neck? How's the action at the 12th fret? If it's really high and the neck doesn't seem to be cutting loose, then of course the body is cutting loose somewhere, and you will see stress marks where the neck meets the bottom. You'll see the stress cracks if there's binding. The binding may be a little bit loose. Same thing back here. If the bottom is coming off, if this is starting to come off and it's getting up into here, this waist is a weak spot. It lets it, like an old man stooped over. It's the same kind of thing. So getting into structural stuff, I'm not going to tell you what I would charge you, but what I would tell you is if you're going to ship it to me, you might spend as much as $100 each way, so you got $200 there, depending what you put in it. And then when people start looking and start seeing the telltale signs of chick flick teal that I've been working on it, they may think that's a good thing, they may think that's not a good thing. It amuses me how some people are on these Harmony K sites and they're like the aficionado of a guitar that cost $23.99 to begin with. Guys, if you find one of these, do what makes you happy. You know that the guys that are really collectors aren't really buying up these. They're hitting the Gibsons and the Fenders and stuff like that. But to each their own. Watch out for tops that are collapsing, and always tap on them to see if stuff's loose. Anyway, you'll see this one. I'll film what I do to it. I'll film how it ends up and get it in the hands of somebody who can play it. Finally, we've talked about how guitars were being modeled after cars and marketed by their paint jobs and what was going on. At the same time, now you know this guitar, guys. I'm going to need the cord again. At the same time, there were 1999 guitars that are cheap to fly around and become the weapon of choice of Bob Log III. Even today, the stuff that was mocking or trying to be the big Gibson L series bodies, and even the cutaways that you see on some of my guitars, they were the Super 400 knockoffs. So the same crowd that was around when the people were buying the guitars that looked like Dad's car were buying stuff like this value leader, K value leader 65-35 double pickup, double pancake pickups. If you can get a hold of these, great. If you can't, Curtis Novak makes a great replacement for these that are modern, new. I think I'll give you a link to Curtis below. I've gotten some of his stuff. It looks authentic and it sounds even better. He knows how to keep what you're looking for the age. But this guitar was getting into $60. Again, $2.42 an hour, minimum wage $1. People taking home, if they were lucky, $500 a month. So this guitar would have been something that a more accomplished player would have been looking at. It was ahead of its time in terms of the solid body. That didn't make any sense. The solid bodies were coming into play, and so the archtops are having a big problem with feedback as guitars got louder, and that's what everybody wanted. But this one, you notice the number 12 junk pile. It's had the neck broke off of it. I ended up getting this guitar from Troy Murrah. I had it a couple of times, and then I ended up doing one that was the same model, looked just like it, from 1962, pristine, and I end up with this one. This was one of our prized possessions. It has good tuners on it. They're certainly not the original ones. It's got this neck fix that covers up the truss rod. It does have a truss rod. I like this correction tape for fret markers on the side. We've caused a problem with shelf bracket and screw availability. Ace Hardware, Acton, California, Culture Capital World. Love this masonry twine strap with that little bit of duct tape on there. It crashed out. Who needs F-holes when it's feeding back really bad? This model is interesting because they didn't finish the top F-hole because the pick guard was there. We got gaffer's tape here. You don't need a three-way switch. Everything is cranked. Love those tone and volume knobs made of the same stuff, your rabbit ears or that metal Christmas tree you had. But this thing is great. Tammy loved it, and it is. If you let this thing go, it will feed back terribly. Cold motor, Bob Log. Okay guys, that'll be it. I'm going to get to tearing that one apart someday. You'll see it when it comes back. That one will get junk piled up. This one will not, and it'll stay on the wall. So there's the economics of that lesson. Thanks for watching. I got some good stuff coming up with some more expensive instruments. I'm going from the $19.99 guitar probably to at least the $21.99 guitar. Give me a like, give me a subscribe if you haven't, and I'll end this by saying I am sure glad that you got to see me today.